Much of what made you successful in your hometown school won't help you very much in a Western school. You need to learn some new skills and adopt some new behaviors. But what skills? What behaviors? Well, the answers are in the Western rules of the game. By the end of this webinar, you will know those rules and answer those questions. You will know what to do and why. Well, I was an international student myself back in 1985 in Taiwan, and that I didn't know any of this stuff. I had a rough time in the classroom, on the streets, and living with the Chinese family. Here's a short video of what it was like for me in the classroom in Mandarin.
我的西方教授很喜欢我，因为我在课堂上大胆发言提问题。我的中国教授不喜欢我，因为我在课堂上大胆发言提问题。你在中国的课堂上可能会很成功，但是你在西方的课堂上并不代表你会成功。
Well, as that video shows, I needed some new skills and I needed to adopt some new behaviors, and quickly. I had to learn to be quiet. I had to learn to be patient. No one in Canada thought it would be possible for me to do that, but I proved them wrong. It got easier once I figured out the Chinese rules of the game. The game was to survive and succeed in a Chinese classroom. The rules were what the teacher and professor expectations were, and the why came from the goal of Chinese culture and the goal of Chinese education. In this webinar, you're going to learn the Western rules of the game. You're going to learn the goal of Western culture, the goal of Western education, and 8 different teacher-professor expectations, 5 of which are often new to international students. By the end of the webinar, you should feel more confident in the class and on the street, and confidence builds confidence. Okay. Most global cultures have goals about behavior, how they want society to be like, how people in society to be like. For example, the goals of Chinese culture are harmony and stability. Well, Western goal is nothing like that. The goal of Western culture is to discover new knowledge. Well, most cultures have education goals that are, again, like China's, something like help the students pass tests to enter university, lots of tests mainly about memorizing right answers. Well, that knowledge-seeking goal of Western culture explains why Western education is so different. The goal of Western education is to teach students to think for themselves. We have tests in the West, certainly, but our tests are usually not about memorizing right answers. Our tests are more a tool to help us learn to think for ourselves. For example, in Western history, we might be asked, why did World War I start? Not when did it start. When's easy, 1914, question over. But why is very different because there is no right answer. And that you as a student, you have to create an answer, build an answer. World War I started for these reasons. Well, I call this a why question. Why questions are very important for all of us because it's where we start to learn to think logically. Here's a short video clip which will help you understand more about why questions.
5 of the 6 questions, who, what, where, when, and how, are what I call database questions. They all have a right answer. You can memorize that right answer. There's no thinking required. Why questions are very different. There often is no right answer, so there's nothing to memorize. Thinking is required. Now, there are 4 steps or skills that you need to answer a why question properly. The first is collect information, and you'll be surprised at how much there is to learn about that. Second, you analyze the information. You go through a series of steps ending up with what I call acceptable information. Well, while you've been doing this, in the back of your mind, you've been thinking, and now you can form an opinion. Well, this is basically the answer to the question, but now you move on to support the opinion, which is give reasons why your answer is the right answer. You end up with an answer that looks like, for these reasons, this is the answer. For these reasons, I am right.
Well, that video about why questions is a good introduction to the next section, learning the rules of the game, the professor, the teacher, expectations. Well, the first one, in my opinion, the most important, is build arguments to support opinions. Look, teachers don't want to know just the right answer from you. They want to know why you think it's the right answer. They want an answer that looks like, this is the right answer for these reasons. For these reasons is the logical argument. Well, logic isn't a school skill. It's a life skill. Once you learn it, you'll never forget it. Why? Well, because it puts a positive feedback loop in your brain. What's that? Well, here's a short video that will explain it for you. What does that mean? Well, it means that the more you use logic, the more useful it is. Well, the more useful it is, the more you use logic. Well, the more you use logic, the easier it is to use. The easier it is to use, the more you use it. The more you use it, the more useful. The more useful you use it more, easier to use, over and over and over again. Well, the positive feedback loop in my brain started in 1979, and it's still going strong. You know, is logic easy to learn? Well, I've been teaching it since 1987, and I have never had a student come to me and say, your course is too easy. So yeah, I guess there can be some difficult parts, but that smart people learn it quickly, so you should have no trouble. The next teacher expectation, the next rule is participate in class discussions. Teachers really care about class discussions because it's discussions where students learn things. It's discussion where students figure out how to communicate ideas with each other, how to ask questions. And so if you're not ready to discuss openly in a classroom, that will hurt you. We learn a lot of discussion skills in my course. I will be explaining that in a little while. One of the rules of discussion is the next expectation, the next rule, and that is that if you can't understand what the other side is saying, you can't have any discussion. And so we learn how to make things clear. Be clear about thoughts and opinion. And that it's actually easier than you think. And that it's just most people aren't aware of it. And once they are, and they learn some principles, it's not that hard. Okay. The next goal is another that is often new to international students, and it's teamwork. And that teamwork's very important in Western culture and in Western school. We start teamwork in the early grades, we learn that important lesson that individual success comes from team success. And so you learn, and of course, you learn a lot of teamwork skills, some theory about teams, some practice, some what to do, what not to do, lots of stuff. Okay, the last of the 5 that are can be new to international students is ask questions if you don't understand. Please ask questions if you don't understand. Westerners think you're foolish if you don't ask a question. We think you're smart if you do ask a question. In the West, we have this famous saying, the only stupid question is one you never ask. So please, ask questions. Okay, the next 2 teacher-professor expectations are easy for all students. Why? Well, because every teacher in the world wants their students to get work in on time and to be polite. So international students have no problem with that. The last expectation is another one that often isn't used by international students, and it is ask for help if needed. Look, your teacher, your professor want you to succeed. They want you to get good results. They are happy to help. One rule: you cannot ask for help on the last day of the course, the day of the exam, the day you're supposed to hand in the project. You won't get any help. The rule is ask for help as soon as you know it's needed. Also, Westerners think that you're mature if you ask for help. What it says is that you think achieving the good result is more important than hiding the fact that you need help. And if you hide the fact that you need help and you do a lousy job because you don't know what you're supposed to do or how to do it, that will hurt you. Okay. Till now, we've learned the Western rules of the game. We've learned that the rules are the teacher-professor expectations, 8 of them. The game is surviving and succeeding in Western classrooms. And the why comes from the goal of Western culture, discover new knowledge, and the goal of Western education, teach students to think for themselves. We'll be coming back to this in a bit, but I want to stop and explain a little bit about myself and the course that I'm offering. My name's Greg. I'm Canadian. I am not a university professor. I am a freelance corporate trainer, consultant, coach, project leader, author, presenter. If you're really interested, just Google my name. Okay. Well, after 35 years of traveling the world, helping cultures come together, it was time for me to retire, but I didn't want to because I never forgot being an international student. So instead of retiring, I'm taking what I've learned and I'm creating some online training programs. For international students, I've created the Success in Western Schools program. It has 4 main areas. 2 you know about or make sense to you, and 2 that are new to you. Well, in the classroom is one of the areas, and that, of course, that has to be there. And this is where you learn discussion skills, asking and answering questions. You learn how to do a presentation. Lots of useful skills, not just for school, but for life. The other area that I'm confident you know of is living in the West. And here's where you learn all the stuff that you don't need in the classroom, but you do need on the street to have a nice time. Look, this should be one of the best times of your life. And that the Living in the West course is designed to help that happen by taking away all the things that you might be embarrassed to do because you don't really know how to do them, giving gifts, dinner parties, how to deal with your landlord, how to deal with the Chinese the family you're living with, how to make friends. So those are two areas. Now a third area I call wearing Western glasses. And this is the cross-culture background that you need to make sense of everything else. And that you learn why Westerners do what we do. You learn how we think, what our attitudes are, what our behaviors are, all related to the goal of Western culture and how we were educated. You learn maybe the second most important thing in the whole program I'm doing is you learn to market, not sell your messages. Very important, very useful. As I said, I call it wearing Western glasses. I think this idea is so important, I wrote wearing Chinese glasses for Westerners, because you end up being able to see things as Westerners do, or as Chinese do in that case. Now, the last section, I've talked about it a lot so far, and that is thinking logically. And you learn how to build and analyze arguments. You learn what a fact is, difference between fact and opinion, how to evaluate information. You learn to be able to think for yourself. It will be the most useful course you will ever take. As I said, you've got that positive feedback loop. Once you get it, you never lose it, just keeps better and better, and that you'll find that you are surrounded by logical arguments. They're everywhere. And one of the things we do in there is that we teach you to protect yourself from bad logic. That could be advertisements on TV or online. That could be arguments that you hear people make. Lots of things. So, that is what I'm offering. Success in Western schools. You've seen a couple of offers pop up to the side. One of them is to invite you to attend another webinar. Okay. The other one is a special introductory price. And so please take a look at those. There's also a download where you can download the content of the course curricula of Success in Western Schools. So that's about it. Thank you very much for your time. I hope to see you in a classroom real soon. Good night.